Hey everyone, thanks for tuning in to TestTube Plus again. I am Trace. This is episode 3 of 5 on our weather series this week. And so far we've discussed the 5 mass extinctions of Earth and how we might be entering a 6th. And now we're talking about weather has affected our wars. It's crazy. Weather has affected all of human history. I mean, everything we've ever done has been affected by our weather and our climate. But weather has also affected our wars. For example, in World War II, Rob Mackenzie at the University of Birmingham and Roger Timmis of the British Environment Agency looked at records of weather patterns from 1943 to 45. And they found that after massive air raids, the areas that the planes had flown over were cooler than similar areas nearby. That's called a contrail, not a chemtrail. Those are not a thing. If you think they might be a thing, let us know and we'll maybe do a conspiracy series. But what happens is a contrail, or the trail of condensation that lies behind a plane, can become seeds for larger cirrus clouds, which then block some of the sun's rays, which causes a shadier Earth. And all it is an airplane flying over. So this is humans affecting the weather. However, it might be that the weather can change whole plans of battle. I mean, not to mention that most battles would stop for rain back in the Napoleonic era when we had flintlock muskets. You had to fill a flash pan filled with black powder, and if you had the flash pan full of black powder and it got wet, you couldn't fire your weapon, so if it started raining, they would just call it off, kind of like a baseball game. It's kind of silly. Plus, battles would stop for wintertime. You didn't usually battle in the winter because it was a lot harder. You didn't have snow plows getting stuff out of the way. But that kept going all the way up into the Second World War. On the morning of August 9th, 1945, a B-29 bomber was on its way to Japan to drop an atomic bomb on the city of Kokura. It was one of the largest arsenals still standing in Japan. So when they got there, they couldn't see. They couldn't see their targets. It was obscured by clouds. They went back and forth over the city 3 times, and they were like, you know what? Let's move on. They moved on to the secondary target, which is much more famous these days, called Nagasaki. We almost didn't bomb Nagasaki. We almost bombed Kokura. But because there were clouds, they couldn't bomb that city. Now, there has been some stories of whether those clouds were natural or whether they were from smoke from fire bombings nearby, or author John Coaster Mullins said that he interviewed a POW in the city of Kokura, and they may have created an actual weather machine. I mean, sort of. There was a POW camp, he said in a quote, right next to the main downtown power plant. The Japanese has installed a large pipe that went from the power plant down into the river, and he stated that whenever B-29s were sighted over Kokura, he being the POW, the steam in the plant was diverted through this pipe into the river. That created enormous condensation clouds that obscured the city. They altered their own weather patterns for war. Now, this hasn't been confirmed by other authors, but John Coaster Mullins is a pretty well-respected author, and the book that he put this in is pretty well-respected. However, that being said, it's possible that it wasn't that, and it was just a natural weather pattern that changed the course of history. Not to mention there are other weather patterns, bigger ones like typhoons in the Pacific War when America was fighting against Japan. December 17th, 1944, a typhoon spun up with winds estimated 145 miles an hour. 3 destroyers in the U.S. Navy were capsized and sunk. Numerous other ships were heavily damaged. 146 airplanes were destroyed, and the storm killed 778 men. June 2nd and 3rd of 1945, a typhoon hit the Third Fleet with 50 to 60 foot seas, sustaining winds of 115 miles an hour and gusts of 150 miles an hour on the east of Okinawa. That damaged 33 ships, destroyed 76 airplanes, and killed 6 men. These weather events could have changed the course of the war. Not to mention, Hitler assumed that Russia could be completely defeated in a summer, and Russian winter rolled in. I think we all know what happened then. He did the same thing Napoleon did. Get out of there. Wasn't a good idea. Essentially, Russian winters were so cold that the Germans could not handle it. 100,000 cases of frostbite were reported in 1941, resulting in the amputation of nearly 15,000 limbs. Heavy machinery broke. Tanks and jeeps refused to start because diesel fuel can actually freeze. I learned that the hard way growing up in the north. And if it freezes, you're pretty much stuck. In the end, I think this is pretty clear. Respect the wrath of weather, because the weather can change history. We aren't even as powerful as clouds, pretty much is what I learned while researching how weather affected war. Clouds changed the world. Isn't that insane? If you've heard about any other ways that weather has affected war, why don't you share them with us down in the comments, and make sure you subscribe for more TestTube Plus. So far, our weather series has been pretty exciting. If you haven't seen the first 2 episodes of the series, check those out. Make sure that you keep coming back here every single day for more stuff, and we will see you tomorrow.